Chapter 10. Ben approached the village with caution. It was abandoned. That much was certain from a distance. Cobwebs stretched across the empty windows. Vines clung to the dark buildings, and an old neglected fence had fallen apart, allowing whatever animals it once held to roam free. At least one building had been burned down to its crumbling foundations, but abandoned only meant there were no people living there. In the past, Ben and Logan had stumbled upon all sorts of mobs in otherwise empty buildings: zombies, skeletons, creepers, and worse. And without Logan to lead the way, Ben might easily be overwhelmed. So Ben took it slow. He started in the fields where crops grew in abundance. He could hardly believe his luck. This bounty could sustain him for a while. If the village's chests were as full of loot as the fields were full of food, he would be able to replenish his inventory in no time. He cut a melon open with his weapon, a simple sword he'd crafted out of stone, grabbing a slice and devouring it with enthusiasm. It had been too long since he'd eaten fresh food. He wiped the juice off his sword, then put several melon slices in his inventory, keeping one to eat while he walked. The first house he checked was empty of any threat, which was easy to figure out because it had no door. Ben stepped inside, crossed to a chest, checked for traps, and threw it open. It was empty. Slime balls, he cursed. Empty was not what he hoped for, but there were a lot more houses to check, and it's not like he had anywhere else to be. 3 hours later, he was beginning to despair. It was clear that someone else had already helped themselves to whatever treasure had been here. At this point, Ben doubted he'd find any loot. But as he looked around the village, he found no shortage of curiosities. In the town center, four saplings stood unnaturally close together, as if someone had planted them there purposely. Nearby, a solitary poppy grew. It looked delicate and out of place, a bright pop of red among all the earthy browns and greens. And at the far side of town, there was a building with an iron door. Ben tried to peer through the small opening in the door, but the room beyond was dark. If there was anything of value in this village, surely this was where he'd find it. He lifted his foot above the pressure plate, operated the door. Then he hesitated. Is this a bad idea? He said. It's probably a bad idea, right? He looked again at the iron door, wondering what secrets hid behind it. Ah, slime balls. You win again, curiosity, he said, and he put his foot down on the plate. The door swung open on a dark room. Ben stepped inside and it once had inside placed torch beside the door. He saw now that it was a library, or it once had been. The place was in completely disarray, with shelves that had been almost entirely emptied of books, dirt blocks stacked in front of the windows, and a few random blocks of oak strewn about. What had happened here? He heard footsteps in the back of the room. Hello? Ben said. There was definitely someone back there. He could see the movement on the far side of the empty shelves. Just a humble traveling adventurer here, Ben said. No reason to look. He took a step forward, then stumbled over a pile of books. Are you embarrassed about the mess? I'm not really very judgmental. You should see the state of my inventory. His answer was a low, threatening growl. Okay, thought Ben. Not a someone, after all. Some kind of animal? Here, kitty, he said, creeping forward. I don't suppose you're guarding a precious treasure back there, are you? As soon as Ben reached the edge of the bookshelf, as soon as had he had an obstructed view, he knew he'd made a terrible mistake. Zombie! He cried, and he stumbled backwards, narrowly avoiding the grasp of the mob as it lunged for him. Ben was too surprised to go for his weapon. All he could think was escape. He scrambled backwards, trying to regain his footing. The zombie's eyes flashed red as it lunged again. Ben flinched, closing his own eyes and bracing for impact. But nothing happened. Slowly, cautiously, Ben opened his eyes. The zombie filled his vision, grasping for him. But it was stuck somehow. It couldn't reach him. Ben got back to his feet, and then he realized that he was significantly taller than his attacker. Aren't you a little short for a zombie? He asked. Ben saw now that it had been left tied to a wooden post. He couldn't quite make sense of that, unless it had somehow entangled itself by accident. The zombie growled, swiping impotently at the air. Ben laughed. You're like a little baby zombie, aren't you? That's adorable. He drew his sword. Honestly, I almost feel bad about this. God, no, said the zombie, and clanked its teeth in an attempt to bite him. See, you get it, said Ben. Mortal enemies, the two of us, in a fight to the death. He raised his sword, ready to strike the creature down. Stop! Shouted a voice, and Ben paused in mid swing. A girl stood in the open doorway, wearing simple clothes supplemented with an iron helmet and boots. She held the bow, loaded and drawn, but her hands were shaking. Don't worry, Ben said in what he hoped was a reassuring voice. You're perfectly safe. I'll take care of this monster. He hefted his sword up once more, and then suddenly an arrow was lodged in his chest plate. Everything went instantly still and silent, as if time itself had stopped. Ben looked down at the arrow, then at the girl, who appeared to be as shocked as he was. Even the zombie had stopped moving to gaze mutely at Ben's injury. Ow! He said, You shot me! I am so sorry, said the girl. I can't believe you did that, said Ben. It hurts. So, again, super sorry, said the girl. But I mean, did I ask you? I did ask you nicely to stop. Not that nicely, Ben countered. He plucked the arrow out of his chest plate. It had gone right through the armor, but had only nipped his skin. I thought I was doing you a favor. By attacking my brother? That's not your brother. That, he pointed, is a zombie. The zombie attempted to bite Ben's outstretched hand, which Ben felt proved his point. He's my brother, said the girl, and he's a zombie. She sighed. Put your sword away and I'll tell you about it. Chapter 11. The girl, Bobbie, did tell him everything. I'm sorry, Ben said. Losing your whole village like that? I can't imagine what that feels like. And he truly couldn't. Ben had never stayed in one place for long. He had a hard enough time imagining what it would be like to have neighbors, a family, much less what it would be like to have them all swept away in the zombie siege. It feels bad, Bobbie told him, really bad. Ben twisted, uncomfortable in the somber silence that followed. He cast about for something to say, something that might lighten the mood. Still, he said, and he forced a grin. You got a pretty sweet house out of the deal. With the entire village to choose from, Bobbie had decided to stay in the towering temple, made of stone and built far taller than any other of the any of the other buildings. It was more like a fortress than a home. Ben saw the appeal in that, and on a purely aesthetic level, it was an impressive space, grand even, with high ceilings, stained glass windows, and colorful banners. It was messy though. Bobbie had stacks of books everywhere. This was where the library's missing volumes had gone. And there were potions strewn all over the place too, including a fresh one bubbling at an active brewing station. It smelled a little off. Bobbie scowled at him. If you're trying to get me to look on the bright side, don't. She crossed her arms. There is no bright side. Other than Johnny, who's not exactly himself these days. Everyone else I know is gone. They got bitten by zombies and then vanished without a trace. They probably burned away when the sun came up, Ben said, and then he saw her scowl deepen. He added, I'm sure it was very quick and painless. Ben picked up the nearest book and leafed through it. It was full of recipes. When he realized the silence had gone on for too long, he looked up to see Bobbie watching him intently. What are you doing here anyway? She asked him, a note of suspicion in her voice. Nothing in particular. Ben shrugged. The usual. The usual, echoed Bobbie. Attacking the harmless kids. Not harmless, Ben countered, and he rubbed his sore chest. Either of you. Johnny is literally tied to a post. I'm a little biased, I guess, Ben countered. Look, I'm a hero, an adventurer. It's sort of my whole deal. He puffed out his chest, flexing a bit, hoping that he looked the part. That means I fight monsters whenever and wherever I find them, and when I discover a village, abandoned or otherwise, I drop in on it, to resupply. To loot the place, you mean? Bobbie said heartily. I know you're kind. You think villagers are just happy little idiots who exist only to make your life easier, your adventures more epic. She frowned. Well, our lives matter, and we have some epic times right here at home. You know. This one time, a fox chased a bunny right through the center of town. Ben waited, assuming there was more to the story. When no more details were forthcoming, he prodded. And, said Bobbie, flustered, the rabbit got away. I hope. Ben scoffed. Too bad for the fox. I once shot a rabbit with with an arrow from 50 paces away. What? Why would you do that? To survive. Ben answered in a tone he hoped sounded very grave. Out there, it's all about survival, and I'd rather be a fox than a rabbit. Funny, you strike me as more of a donkey, said Bobbie. Listen, I don't know what it's like out there, but I know that this was a peaceful place, full of good people who were just going about their business. All the heat went out of her. We deserve better than to be treated like we didn't matter. Ben felt suddenly guilty. His eyes fell to the floor. They mattered, he said. Of course they mattered. I can tell you for a fact this village had the best melons I ever tasted. Bobbie slapped him across the shoulder. You ate our melons? What is wrong with you? Hey, come on, he said, ducking her follow-up attack. In doing so, he accidentally knocked the recipe book off the table. It was a compliment. Yeah, well, I'd pass it on to Farmer Briar if I could, said Bobbie. Just ask before you take anything else, okay? He picked up the book from the ground, placing it back on the table. What are you reading? This looks like recipes. Potion formulas, Bobbie corrected. Oh, that reminds me. She hurried over to the broomstick, removing the bubbling flax and giving it a furtive sniff. Hey, would you drink this? I would not, Ben said. He could smell it from a distance, and it did not smell appetizing. Yeah, that doesn't look right, Bobbie said. She placed the flax among a half dozen other failed attempts. I'm not exactly natural at this, but I'm determined to find a cure. Cool, said Ben. A cure for belly aches? A cure for sore feet? Bobbie rolled her eyes. A cure for my brother, genius, she said. You're looking for a cure to cure. You're looking for a cure for zombieism? That's not a word, said Bobbie said. But yes, she sighed. That's why I set up in here. Not because it's a sweet house. Our cleric used to live here, and they were really talented at this sort of thing. I guess I was hoping to, I don't know, invoke some of the old magic. That's not surprising, Ben said. Clerics are always good with potions. He sniffed the nearest flask, then recoiled. It's apparently harder than it looks. You know other clerics, asked Bobbie. Sure, said Ben. I mean, not on a first name basis or anything. He shrugged. There was a good one just the next town over. Savannahton, I think it was called. Logan and I sold them some rotten flesh a while back. Say, he said, pointing to at a flask. Maybe rotten flesh is the missing ingredient here. It couldn't make it smell any worse. There's a cleric nearby, and you know where to find them? Bobbie leaped forward, and Ben shrunk back, expecting to be hit again. So this time, she enveloped him in a hug. Thank you, oh, thank you. Oh, sure, said Ben. I'm sort of getting emotional whiplash, but you're welcome. She gripped his shoulders and shook him lightly. She looked a little maniac. Now, how do we get to Savannah Town from here? When was the last time you got some sleep or a decent meal? Ben asked her. I know where you can get a good melon slice. She shook him more firmly now. Savannah Town, she said. Where? Okay, stop. Ben said, and he pulled out of her grip. Look, you can't just hop over to the next town. You have to think about food and shelter, and it's easier than you think it to get lost. It's easier than you think to get lost. He shook his head, and that's not to mention the monsters. You think zombies are bad? There are way worse things out there. It sounds like I need a hero, Bobbie said, smirking. You know, the kind of guy who fights monsters whenever and wherever he finds them. Ben felt his mouth go dry. He definitely oversold his talents. Well, yeah, but, he said, casting about for an excuse that would allow him to retain some dignity. It's not like I go looking for monsters, and besides, I've got a lot of requests lined up right now, and I can pay you, Bobbie offered. What? In Melon? Ben grinned. It wasn't that good. I have emeralds, Bobbie said. Heroes like emeralds, right? Ben did like emeralds. Ben, in fact, loved emeralds. He tried very hard not to show it. Logan had taught him that the key to any successful negotiation was to stay cool. He said. They're alright. I also have cake if you prefer, Bobbie offered. Tell me more about these emeralds, Ben said, in a manner that was not entirely good. Well, they're shiny, practically new, said Bobbie. Every time a hero came through, they'd trade emeralds for whatever supplies they needed. But the village didn't have a lot of use for gems. We were mostly self-sufficient, so we keep them stashed away in a safe place. She smirked, as if she could sense Ben's desperation, as if she could smell it. Escort me to Savannahton and back, and the emeralds are yours. Ben made a show of weighing the offer, holding out long enough to mask his desperation. Fine, he said at last. It's a deal. But when we're out there in the real world, you'll have to do what I say. No questions asked. You got it, hero, Bobbie said brightly. You're the boss. Ben, perpetual sidekick, found he liked the sound of that. That's right, he said. I am the boss, he sighed. noticing the fading daylight through the temple's stained glass windows. One of those windows was broken, offering an obstructed view of the late afternoon sky. I guess we should set out first thing in the morning. Johnny can't go out in the sunlight, though, said Bobbie. Ben narrowed his eyes. Why does that matter? Because he's coming with us, Bobbie answered. Obviously. Are you kidding? Said Ben. The kid who tried to eat me earlier today? That that Johnny? I can't leave him all alone. All alone, Bobbie insisted. I'm responsible for him. Ben opened his mouth to argue, but he was struck dumb. How could she possibly think this was a good idea, and why should he go along with it? Heroes like emeralds, right? I'm regretting this already, he said, moaning. You'll keep him on a leash the whole time, right? A short leash? Bobbie nodded. Then she saluted. Whatever you say, boss. But something in the way she said it this time made him doubt her sincerity. Suddenly, Ben felt like he wasn't actually the boss of anything. Chapter 12. Ben eyed the zombie boy warily as Bobbie led him out of the library. She had him on a lead, as promised, and 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 at the moment he seemed docile, gnawing on a bone. He didn't even acknowledge Ben's presence. You see, she said, he's very well behaved. Right, said Ben. And you're wearing a boot on your hand because it's just a precaution. She said, honestly, he barely even tries to bite me anymore. Fantastic, said Ben. Just what I was looking for in an adventuring partner. Only occasionally attempts to eat my face. I think he starts with your toes, Bobbie said, and at Ben's look of horror, she added, I'm kidding, it'll be fine, as if she could possibly know that. And anyway, if and when they went into trouble, she clearly wasn't going to be much help. Not with one hand gripping the lead and the other stuck inside an iron boot. Listen, I took some things from the cartographer's house, said Ben, and holding up a hand to forestall her objection, he added, out of necessity, and I'm only borrowing them for our errand. Our quest. Quest does sound more impressive, agreed Bobbie. Ben held up a map. This is a locator map. I cloned it from another one I left inside the cartographer's house. Long story short, this map will always show the way back to Plaintown, so we don't have to worry about getting lost. It'll even work when we're traveling underground. Underground? Echoed Bobbie. That sounds dangerous. Quests are dangerous, Ben answered. If it were up to me, we'd be traveling overland by day, when there are fewer dangers and camping at night. But we've got your brother's skin condition to worry about. So we're going overland by night and underground by day. You have your pickaxe? Bobbie showed him. Good, but be sure to remember the first rule of venturing. Don't dig straight down. Why not? Asked Bobbie. Well, you never know what's directly beneath your feet, and you wouldn't want to drop a tremendous distance or fall into lava or land in the grip of an ugly, stinky, slobbering zombie. He turned to Johnny. No offense. He turned back to Bobbie. Now, are you sure you grabbed everything of value? He quickly corrected himself. Of use, I mean. Valuable in a useful sense. Bobbie sighed, stowing her pickaxe and looking through her meager belongings. It's like I've told you before. Every chest in town was ransacked at some point. I think it happened right after the siege, when I was distracted. But you definitely have the emeralds, Ben said. Oh my gosh, yes, she said, and she held one out and waved in his face. We had them hidden away where no one would look. I promise you're going to get paid. I wasn't worried about that, Ben said, fibbing a little, but it's not like he was greedy. He could amass a lot of good gear with those emeralds. And good gear meant staying alive, improving his metal. They did not have good gear at the moment. Ben and Bobbie each had a bow, but only but they only had five arrows between them, which wouldn't last them very long. They also each had one sword and one pickaxe, none of which were in particularly good quality. They will need replacements or upgrades soon. Ben wore his iron chest plate, which had been worn down even before Bobbie had added a puncture mark, and he'd cobbled together a new pair of leather boots so his toes should in fact be safe from zombie nibbles. Bobbie had normal unarmored clothing aside from her boots and an iron helmet that gleamed in the light of the moon. It had clearly never seen combat. Johnny, of course, wore the tattered remnants of his once surely adorable baby clothes. They would have to be careful. A single hostile mob, if it got the job on them, could spell their doom. Well, nobody lives forever, Ben said gibbily. Shall we get going? Ben had thought Bobbie would be eager to get started, but she hesitated. In a minute, she said, at last. Just give us a minute first. Bobbie pulled on Johnny's lead, and the two walked over to the lone poppy growing near the town center. Bobbie kneeled before the flower. Thank you for saving me, she said, and she patted her own helmet. You're still protecting me, even now. I'm taking a piece of you with me. She turned to her brother. You want to stay? You want to say anything? Gah, said the zombie boy, who stared blankly ahead with his creepy little eyes. He was always good to you, said Bobbie. Ben tried to give them some space for whatever it was they were doing. He turned away from them, twirling his sword in his hand and looking up at the moon. It was a real moment of peace. And then Ben was struck from behind. He stumbled forward, barely managing to stay on his feet. That had hurt. What's the big idea? He shouted, rolling around. Bobbie looked up from the poppy beneath her helmet. She suspiciously wiped a tear away. Johnny feigned empty-headed innocence. What's the matter? Bobbie asked. Your pet zombie just attacked me. Johnny tilted his head, as if confused. Good? He said. He did not, Bobbie argued. I was holding him to his lead the whole time. We'll hold it tighter, Ben said, rubbing his aching back. We're not going to get very far if he takes a bite out of me every time I turn. Look out! Ben's warning came too late. A strange creature had dropped from the sky. It had large, tattered wings, eerie green eyes, and exposed bones sticking out along its body. It struck Bobbie from behind and then swooped back into the sky before either of them had a chance to react. Ow, said Bobbie. Was that a giant bat? Way was, said Ben, and he held his sword up in front of him. Phantom. Ben looked up into the sky, where we counted at least 5 phantoms circling high above them. When's the last time you slept through the night? I don't know, answered Bobbie. I mean, my brother's nocturnal, and I've been so focused on looking for a cure, I've sort of lost track of the days. Well, these things can sense your exhaustion. They strike when you're weak. A phantom swept down to attack him, but he sidestepped, slicing it with his sword as it passed. Lucky me. Now that they're here, they don't seem too picky about who they attack. Ow! Said Bobbie again, dropping Johnny's lead. Oh, perfect, thought Ben. Now they had to deal with phantoms and a zombie that he wasn't allowed to destroy. But when Johnny leaped into action, it was the phantom he pounced upon, the one that just struck his, the one that had just struck his sister. He tore into it, and the phantom pounded its wings, taking to the sky in panic. Had the zombie actually protected her? Ben had never seen anything like that happen before. Then again, maybe Johnny had just lashed out at the nearest moving target. Could you please hold on to that lead? Ben complained. We've got to get out of here. And fast. He barely dodged another phantom. There are too many of them. We've got to dig straight down. But you said never to do that, Bobbie said. Well, yeah. Why start listening to me now? Dig, dig! Ben struck the dirt beneath his feet, and then the ground was gone, and he was falling, hurtling straight down into open space. He opened his mouth to scream, and then landed on his feet. Oh, he said. That wasn't so bad, actually. Bobbie landed in a heap beside him. Johnny was pulled along on his lead so that he landed right on top of her. Ben helped pull her out from under the zombie. Ben helped pull her out from under the zombie while it was still dazed. Are we safe from the phantoms? Bobbie asked as she dusted herself off. I don't know. I don't think they'll follow us on the ground, Ben answered. But just to be sure, he heaped up using dirt to plug the holes they'd fallen through. Now was no way for the phantoms to reach them. Ben double checked that Bobbie had a good grip on Johnny's leash. And then he took a breath and surveyed the surroundings. They landed in some sort of tunnel. It had cobblestone floors and walls and a dirt ceiling. And it measured 5 blocks across by 6 high. Room to maneuver, but far from spacious. Torches were placed along the eastern wall at regular intervals, and the rail ran along the ground. Someone built this, and recently, I think, said Ben. He turned to Bobbie. I've seen mine shafts before, but they're always old and falling apart and full of, he shrugged, spiders. This is either brand new or well maintained. Were there any miners in your village? She shook her head. No, nobody spent any time on the ground. I would have noticed. She tapped her chin. It's weird, though. I did notice a light coming from underground the night of the zombie siege. After everything that happened, I'd forgotten. But this tunnel must be the source of the light I saw. It must run directly under the library. And beyond, Ben peered. Ben peered up and down the tunnel. It continued straight in either direction for as far as the eye could see. Well, we may as well take advantage of it. We want to head that way, said Ben, pointing north. But when he turned back to Bobbie, he saw that her gaze was on the ceiling. Some part of her wanted to linger. I'm sorry your goodbyes were cut short, said Ben. That's all right, said Bobbie, then, and she forced a smile. We'll be back soon, right? Just a quick errand quest first. We'll be back before you know it, Ben promised, doing his very best to keep the doubt he felt out of his voice.